a brand new year in 2026. Welcome back to the 167.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
Hey, welcome back in 2026 to the 167.
This is 2026. We're in the future right now.
We are. It made me, like, when you asked me, I was like, wait, are we? Did I say it wrong?
Wow, we're in the future.
Man.
Seems like just a few weeks ago it was 2025.
Like, I know this is going to make me an unk or an old hat, but it's like, I remember when 2000 was the future. You know, it's like growing up, they're like, the world's going to, Y2K and all that. It's like 2000, and then now I check IDs sometimes for people in different contexts, and it's like, I can't just look for the 1990 anymore. It's like, if you were born in 2005, you're 21 years old.
Yeah, dates get it gets a little scary, a little concerning as you get older.
I know.
You're like, oh my gosh.
What do you think that, like, what do you consider the future now? Like 2050? Because 2030 is around the corner.
Yeah. I can't even envision 2050. What will I be in 2050? What is that? 25 years.
25 years.
Roughly. So I'm 63. So.
Yeah, almost 90. 88.
Oh,
That's not actually unattainable.
No, there is a history.
Yeah. So we want to welcome you back to the podcast. We want to shout out Jan Nelson, who picked up the podcast and started listening.
Jan. All right, Jan.
I love Jan. She's so sweet. She always comes up on Sunday and gives me a hug and says encouraging things. So I want to shout out Jan.
Thanks for listening, Jan.
So we're in the second week of a series, so we're going to kind of backtrack a little bit to catch everybody up. But we're talking about the mission and vision of New Life and kind of what we're looking for now that we're in the future.
Yeah.
So you were talking a little bit last week about needing to see the vision before that you can kind of get it, before you can kind of move. And I just wanted to explore that a little bit. What is this? Because it's not necessarily like, I know that's very popular on the internet now to talk about manifestation or things like that, but it's not really that, but it's the ability to imagine or see what's possible for it. Why is that so important?
So I want to maybe frame it with this morning when we were just briefly going through that. A passage popped into my mind from, correct me if I'm wrong, Psalm 139. I'm just going to go with that.
We'll say
Psalm 139.
Drop it in the comments if we're wrong.
Yeah, fact check me. But in that psalm, the psalmist is saying, wow, look at, like, you created me. Mm-hmm. Every delicate, intricate part of my being, you wove it together. And, like, this is incredible. Like, it's just fascinating. So with that context, to think something that's fascinating about us is that woven into the fabric of our DNA is the ability to imagine. Like, we were created with an imagination, which is something that sets us apart from other beings and animals, whatever. So we have this imagination, and the imagination is a powerful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And so, again, this is just my personal, like, I need to envision things. I need to have a picture of what something looks like before I get real inspired. So the practical part of that, what does that look like for us? Before we moved to this building that we're currently in and worshiping in, we met with architects, and they began to draw out plans. And the first plans were pretty generic, but it was like an external view of what they were thinking about. Mm-hmm. And from that initial drawing that doesn't look anything like our building now, but it started the process of, okay, now I can start to see what it could be. Okay, then you take it from there through that process. We had an outdoor service on this property before any dirt was moved.
We tried to line the stage up.
Yes, so we wanted it to visualize. We put the stage where the stage would be on the property. And then at the end of that service, we had everybody hold hands and we prayed and we did an outline of the entire building as close as we could. And the reason for that was for people to visualize this is our new home, this is our space. Because when you can see it, then it starts to become a reality. You can see beyond the dream. I think, and then we can move on, but I think it's primarily why if you've ever sold a house, a real estate agent will come to your home and they'll walk through and they'll say, hey, you need to put that away or get rid of that stuff, clean this up, because we want potential buyers to envision themselves being able to live here.
Oh, yeah, you're supposed to take down your family photos.
Yeah, they don't want to see you living there. They want to envision that space. Oh, this would be perfect for whatever it is that so they can visualize and begin to dream about this could be ours. And so, yeah, visualization, being able to see something, again, not in a creepy, way, not in this
manifestation.
So anything that God,
the energy of the universe will manifest.
So again, keep in mind anything that God creates and anything that's good from God, the enemy wants to take it and twist it and use it for something different. So, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about being able to see the plan of God and what it could be. That's the inspiration that gets us to where He wants us to be.
Yeah, I think you touched on two things that are really important, which is the planning aspect, and then you kept saying hours. It's like when you were talking about that, like building a building, is you get into it in different stages, of course. You said, like, if you just start going, meh, let's pour some concrete and start putting up walls and see what happens, like, that's going to be terrible.
Yeah.
And so you have to have a plan, and you have to, be able to know where you're going. Otherwise, like I said, it amazes me that some people can do that. Like, you see people that are I'm just going to build a house, and they just start building, and I'm like, they're doing that calculation in their brain, and I'm like, I can't see it.
Or the guys who, take a log that was cut off a tree, and then 2 hours later in a chainsaw, they've got a bear, catching a fish. Like, how did you carve that
That's
out
incredible.
of a piece of wood?
Yeah. And it's like, I'm like, I can't see it. And
But they could. See, that's the
Right.
thing. They see it, and they can make what they see, that imagination, they can make it come to life. I don't have that gift.
Yeah.
I wish I did. It's so cool.
well, and like, there's people that can do that. But if you're taking a whole group of people, it's like if I'm building a house or I'm doing a sculpture, but if multiple people are doing it, then you're really going to have to
You got to make it clear.
make it clear and be able to take people with you. So that was like when you were talking about the building, like it's one thing if you're like, we're going to get a building, and if you're Moneybags McMillionaire, like, you just, pay somebody and put it up. But if you got to bring people with you, if you have to raise funds, if you have to do all the things, you have to get people on the same page and have them be able to see what you're seeing.
Absolutely.
So, was there something in your life besides, like, obviously this church, we talked about the building. Is there something that, you really didn't, like, move on it, or you didn't, like, you had to see it in clarity before you did it?
I think everything of significance in my life, I have visualized or I've seen it. It's something that became, like, clear, and then I moved on it. Even going back, it's been a long time, 43 years. But when Trudy and I got married, I didn't know a lot. I was dumb. I was, 19 years old, but I could envision, like, I saw our life together. I knew that this was somebody that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. And I could envision a better life than I currently had. Every home that we've ever lived in, the same thing. It's like, we didn't set out to move. It was like there was something that happened, and it was like, I can see how that is going to play out. And so we moved and bought a house. When we moved to Gardner, it made no sense whatsoever. Like, it was, and I had people tell me this. you're an idiot. Like
You
this
actually came to see it and still came.
Yeah,
You came to
because-
visualize it and you're like, oh, this is great.
And so, what I saw physically wasn't the same thing that I saw, like vision wise, spiritually, but I saw it, and then, like, I knew. And again, people said, that's dumb. Like, why would you do that? It's because what I saw, not because what I felt or the physical thing. It was something beyond that. So pretty much everything, I can see it before it actually happens.
One of my favorite stories, kind of like that, was the story of Mexico City. Have you ever heard that? Where this guy was told that he thought he had a vision that he was supposed to build a city where he saw a eagle gripping a snake on top of a cactus on top of a rock, and he found it, but it was in the middle of a lake. And so then they just started and people were like, you can't build a city on the middle of, and they did it.
Yeah. So, that's a similar, and I would say for everyone, like it's not exclusive. Like you can see things. I would say some people do have a gift, like that is something that is more prominent in their life, where they're able to see things more easily, or they see them earlier, or they see them more clearly, and they have whatever, a gifting, a leadership gift, or whatever. But I think everyone, because it's wired into us, we have that ability to see beyond what is current. And then, so
we were talking about that. We've talked about it in the context of our church, and you've been, kind of talking out and bringing out the story of Ezra and Nehemiah. And so I just wanted to touch base on that. So I think a lot of people get confused because Ezra and Nehemiah are so similar. So can you tell me a little bit about that? Like, what's the difference between Ezra and Nehemiah, and what's happening in the story of Israel?
Well, they're both very prominent figures, instrumental in the coming back and reestablishing worship within Jerusalem, or within Israel. Like in a nutshell, they're kind of it's one story.
Yeah.
In fact,
Ezra might be the prequel.
yeah. So I had how to word this carefully. Some people view it as it's one book, kind of divided.
Almost like two perspectives.
Yeah.
Like I've read a couple of chapter books like that. You can tell I have small kids and I'm saying chapter book. But where it's like one chapter there's 4 warriors in the thing, and so then there's, 2 chapters are from this guy's perspective and 2 guys are from this.
So Ezra is like the lead in. It's the introduction. Ezra, I guess, could be defined as the spiritual leader of the coming back and the return, where Nehemiah would be what we would consider today maybe the political leader, or the hands-on, the builder, the coordinator part of that.
Ezra's like, let's rebuild the temple and get worship going, and Nehemiah's like, where's the wall?
Yeah, and so hey, do you realize there's no place to actually do what you're wanting to do? And Ezra's like, yeah, you take care of that. So Ezra is the spiritual, brings the Torah, the Word of God, the spiritual foundation. Nehemiah is like, okay, we need a place. We're going to rebuild the walls. And then I've been focusing a little more intently on the book of Nehemiah, and I'll jump back there this coming week, because it does clearly show us the importance of like daily planning, future planning. Like he had it, again, I don't know that it was all written out in a, checklist, but man, when you read it, it's like, all right, here's how it's going to work. You're going to do this. You're going to go here. And we're going to need wood, and we're going to need this. And he had these lists and plans. And
It's like, we're rebuilding the wall, but what about guards? Just wear a sword.
yeah. So you got a trowel in one hand, a sword in the other. It's like, just, kill somebody and keep laying bricks. And, it's crazy.
I always think that's funny though, because I feel like it is so kind of apropos when it comes to big movements, and sometimes big movements of God, where you have the one guy coming in, it's revival, right? Like the people come back, everybody's excited. They're like, we're gonna read, and they read the Torah, and people fall down on their faces, and it's this big revival, and it's like, this is revival, and it's like, but nothing practical is
Yeah.
getting done. It's like, it's like there's no wall that, like people have to rebuild their homes, like, and all these things are going, and then somebody has to come in and go, okay, guys, like, let's, yes, we can have revival, but also we have to do this.
Yeah, and it really is a good picture, those two, Ezra and Nehemiah. It's a good picture of the church today. If the church just had a bunch of pastors,
Yeah.
like we would know a lot of things, and maybe we could inspire people to, but nothing would get done.
Right.
Like there's no, pastors don't do anything.
We just sit around till
We
Sunday,
just sit around.
do podcasts.
That sounded bad. It's like nothing had happened, but we'd have a great plan. That's not what I meant. But it does require workers. It requires people who can hear what is being said, see it, embrace it, and then say, where's my place on the wall?
Right.
What do I need to build? How do I make this happen? Nehemiah did a great job of coordinating all of that, where Ezra did a great job of inspiring and sharing God's word and the spiritual side.
And shout out to our people, because I think our people are great at this, because a lot of people take it for granted that you show up here on Sunday and everybody's like, yeah, I showed up. And what they're doing is they're saying, I showed up and I wanted to hear the message and I wanted to worship. But what they actually did is they went to a clean bathroom, and they came in and got a cup of coffee that somebody made, and granola bars that are set out in a lobby that is also clean and organized and decorated. And they were greeted at the door. It's like there's all these thousand small things. The chairs got put away from a different event, and all of these things where people are actually doing they've got the trowel and the sword, right?
Yep.
They're doing the thing, and yet people don't necessarily see that, but they want the revival. But sometimes it's harder to be Nehemiah to come in and take that imagination and make it happen.
So it's funny you bring that up. And so just this past Sunday, I had a thought that turned into a really brief conversation with somebody. It didn't go anywhere. It wasn't significant, but thinking back, it is significant. And here was the thought that I had. So our pastoral team, our church staff, we get here at 6:30 roughly. Yeah. The worship team gets here a little bit earlier, maybe 6:15 on Sunday mornings, just to start getting things prepared. And then we have a meeting where we come together, a pre-service kind of logistical meeting, make sure everything's covered at 7:15. So between 7 and 7:15, there are multiple people who are not on staff, who are just church members, who start showing up at the church to make sure things get done. Coffee made. Brian Williams. Here's a shout out to Brian Williams.
Oh man, Brian is beast.
Most people probably have no idea who Brian Williams is. But Brian Williams gets here super early, whether it's raining or cold or hot, and he starts putting out all of the cones for the parking, the external signage out on the road. He gets all the logistical things put into place. So when the parking team shows up at 7:30, 7:45, then they're able to do what they do. All of this is happening because of people.
Yeah.
People in our congregation who aren't being paid to do what they do. They just have their place on the wall. So Brian has a place on the wall. The parking team has a place on the wall. The people who come and serve in the lobby, that's their place on the wall to build. And so, yeah, it's a powerful thing. And that so that thought hit me as I saw people, at 7:10 filling up the lobby. And I just had a real brief conversation with someone about, it's just incredible, that church doesn't start till 8:45 and it's 7 o'clock and people are here. They're out of bed on a Sunday and they're here.
Yeah, 2 hours ahead of time getting stuff ready.
Yeah, and some people can't get here till the first song's going. That's a whole nother topic. So sorry. Shout out to the late people.
Do it. No, I'm just kidding. This week you were making a point which I think is so clear, and I feel like I try and do this in my parenting too sometimes, and it's sometimes disappointing. But I'm always trying to, because as a parent, sometimes when you're trying to train up your child, like you can use carrot stick, right? Bad, good, just reward system. But especially now that I have teenagers, what I'm really seeking for them is clarity, because I'm like, if you disobey me and I just say bad child, and punish you, that doesn't mean anything unless your heart changes, because then as soon as I let go of grounding you or whatever, you're going to be right back to it, unless I feel like I can install some bit of clarity that when they go, hey, listen, it's not that I don't want you to have social media because I'm a big bad ogre and social media is so fun. It's because I'm reading all these studies about how dangerous that is for you and your brain. And so, like, if you will acknowledge, oh yeah, I see that that's not good for me.
Right.
I'll wait, till I'm 18 or whatever. I'm going, oh, good. We have an accord, and we can.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about the relationship between clarity and obedience. And I thought about that because you said that clarity leads to obedience. And I said under my breath, I just said, or blatant defiance. Because there is this thing where it's like God can come to people and make it so clear to them, the Jonahs of the world. And it's just like, hey, I need you to go to this place. And they're like, no. But tell me about the relationship and what our hope is in that, where it's like, yes, if you have clarity on something, that should lead you to obedience. Otherwise, you are, outside the will.
So again, in just a very practical way, and I mentioned it a little bit in the message this past week, when it comes to money. So if somebody came to you with a financial opportunity and they said, oh, you can make a lot of money, all you got to do is give me 10,000 or 50,000, whatever the amount is. And you're like, well, I don't know if I have that much. And they're like, yeah, but you could make a boatload of money. And you're like, okay, I think I'll try to scrape it up. So how is this going to work? And they're like, I don't really know. But if you give me the money, then I'll start figuring it out as we go. It's like,
Pass.
yeah,
Hard pass.
I think I'm going to have to say no, because there's no clarity. There's nothing that I can really grab a hold. There's nothing that makes sense. But if that same person came with that same opportunity, and then they had a spreadsheet, and they had a 5-year history of the return on the investment, and they could show you a projected future that was pretty reliable and some of the plan of how they're going to get there, and you can start to see it and understand it, then you're like, I understand it's a bit of a risk, but man, this makes a lot of sense. And so, yes, let me go get some money. I want to invest that. That's in a financial world, but spiritually, physically, with children, it's the same thing. So when you discipline your child, if they're like, well, this is stupid, like, you've just told me very little that I don't even agree with. Mm-hmm. But if you say, listen, here's some facts, and I've been there. I was your age once, and here's what I saw, and here's what's currently happening, and I do want what's best for you, and this is what the future could look like, and this is a reward. This is the payoff. If you listen to what I'm saying and you buy into what I'm saying, there is a payoff, and there's a proven track record. And then your kids will say, oh, Dad, you're so smart. I'll do anything you say. Yeah, no, not
Just
exactly.
living the dream.
But you do start to establish a little bit of credibility. And the hope for every parent is that in that long game, when you start doing that when they're 8, 9, 10, then they start to see, oh, yeah, you kind of do know what you're talking about. And then it builds, and you do have some track record to base some of your future decisions on, and then they buy in. And
I think there's so many things that are in that is, I think about, like you said, if it's kind of the difference between, like, we deal with people where it's like, oh yeah, I ignored my parents. I went off and I did drugs and whatever. And now I realize that Jesus is the way. And I'm going, okay, but for people that stay in that, it's hard not to fight that. Like I've been brainwashed kind of, because it's like you haven't experienced anything except Jesus' love. And so you're like, this is just my life. Like I tell my kids that like one of the things that we try and teach at home is tithing. It's like in trying to teach my kids like, hey, this has a blessing, not only because you learn to discipline yourself with money, but I believe it has a supernatural blessing. And, I've done that most of my life. And it's like, I can't remember a time that I didn't, accounting for things where I was like, I fell, God increased my giving and I didn't adjust it in time.
Sinner.
Yeah. So I usually once a year kind of take stock of that. So doing that, people can say, oh, you don't know what it is to struggle. And I'm going, but like I've been, I haven't been, wealthy or rich or anything else. I've been consistent that I try and stay out of debt, and, pay my tithe and live off the rest. And it's like, so you can argue whether or not that discipline has carried me through, which is a blessing in and of itself. But there have been times where Chris and I, the money made sense and it did, or the money happened and it didn't make sense. And I think that that's a blessing from the Lord.
Yes.
But you could just argue that, well, it's not necessarily obedience or clarity, but it's this. And I just think that, there's so many times where, like with my kids, I'm like, I want them to understand those things so they never have to experience the lack. They never have to experience a bad consequence in order for them to get it. They just receive the clarity from Scripture or from teaching.
So just to continue with that thought with finances. So I believe, and I don't think anybody can argue well against it, but the Bible is clear, abundantly clear about our responsibility financially.
Yeah.
The expectation, there are little nuances, but the heart of God is wrapped up somehow in our understanding of money. Like like he understands how important that is. And so when you look at Scripture, it is undeniable that his desire for us is to be generous, to give abundantly, to tithe, to put him first in everything. So without question, you could argue 10% or, okay, we can have that discussion, but generosity, putting him first, making it a priority, those are unquestionable. And so to me, that is clarity. It is crystal clear. For me and for you, that clarity has led to obedience. So it is clear. If I do this, I'm honoring God. And as a result, there will be a payoff. It might not be a 1-for-1, oh, I gave $1,000, I'm getting $1,000 back.
Right.
But there is a supernatural blessing. And in my life, I'm thankful that it hasn't been a 1-to-1. It seems to be a multiplication, not an addition in my life. And so I've seen the reward of that faithful obedience in the small things and then a blessing upon that. But it also, that clarity also leads people to outright rebellion and resistance. And they'll say, well, I know what the Bible says, but I'm not doing it. It's like, well, why? You don't want God to bless you? And I don't understand it.
Or it's like the bare minimum. I know a guy that he's like, well, I'm retired, so I don't tithe off my retirement because I already tithed off it at the beginning. I'm like, well, A, that has accumulated, but B, I'm just going to do it because I like, and again, it's about believing what we're doing, because the hard part about any nonprofit, whether it's church or whatever it is it's not necessarily that you're looking for an ROI that necessarily benefits you. I think it does, but it's more akin to like, if I took my kid to Mayo Clinic, right? And Mayo Clinic, there was something that was wrong with her, and we couldn't figure it out, and we took her to Mayo, and they healed her, and got her straight, did a surgery, and saved her life. And then they were like, "Would you like to donate to Mayo?" I'm going, yes, because that not only did we benefit from that, and maybe you got a hospital bill and you paid it anyway, but it's like, I want other people to be saved. I want other people to experience what we've experienced. And then it's, then it becomes the responsibility of the hospital to tell me the stories of how they're using the money and the people that are being saved, because that's why I'm giving. I want to give to be saved. And I think that, especially we have a track record, like, even if people can't see, all of the stories, like, we do freedom work. So it's like, we're kind of in that thing where people are coming and they have a specific need or want that it's like going, I have to get over this in my life. And we get to watch them work through that, fix their marriage, maybe receive a physical healing, all of those things. And it's like, it's very much akin to that, where you're doing a fundraiser to Children's Mercy or any of those things where it's like, hey, I know that you have received a benefit, and maybe it's just encouragement and Christian knowledge, and you got to have a cup of coffee and a granola bar when you come in. But for other people, this is a life-saving thing that you are not just donating to with your money, but it's the people that come in, like you said, that wash the dishes, clean the bathrooms, Brian, who's putting out the parking, that made sure that there was a parking spot that person came in, and that later results in them getting saved.
Yeah, and we live in a culture now where we understand it, and we don't push back hard against it. In fact, many people lean into it and go above and beyond. But you go to a restaurant, and the general expectation is 20% of it, and it's a gratuity. It's in gratitude, right? So thank you for what you did for me, and above and beyond what my bill was, I want to say I appreciate you, and here is a tip, right? The gratuity to say thanks for taking care of me.
Yeah,
that's 20%. I think that's reasonable at the church.
You'd be like
20% of your income. Thank you.
You paid this person 20% to bring your food, but God saved your marriage, and you won't get 10.
Yeah, and so to think it's 10%, and it's not just I have to give that 10%. It's looking at the totality of this ministry and all that it does that impacts me, impacts the people I love, and impacts people that I will never connect with, but it is impactful. And then in response to a God who loves me and who takes care of me, and he says, just be generous and give, like fund this work that I'm doing. Like, is it too much? Like, that's the thing. Is it too much to say, okay, I'll do that? And some people say, yes, that's too much. I am not going to do that.
And it's not just the funding, but it's the getting involved. And the ROI, I think, is hard because it's not children having appendectomies, but it's marriages saved. It's eternal salvation, which, granted, if you save a teenager, that's going to be 70 years down the road that, their salvation really, I guess fully cultivates into, heaven. But I'm going, all of those decisions, those are, every time that we help children have a biblical foundation, those are future doctors and lawyers and politicians. Like, it's influence in the culture. It's all these things, but sometimes I think it's just too intangible for people.
So a couple of things, so casting vision. So 2026 here at New Life is a year where our primary, it's not the only thing we're doing, but the primary focus, the vision piece is, again, outreach, evangelism, community impact, going outside the walls, and why that's significant. Okay, so this is not a country club,
right?
It's not, oh, look at this place that I get to go and hang out and be blessed and do nothing. That's not what the church is. Like, it's a training center. It's a hospital. It's a place where people that are hurting can come and get restored, trained, equipped, and then go back out into the world. So it's that outreach part is the part of the cycle of ministry, of bringing them in, equipping, and going back out. So every person in the process plays an important part of the process. I was sharing with a couple of people recently the story you might think it's corny, but it's powerful to me. Almost 100 years ago now, there was a preacher who did revivals, those outdoor revivals.
Yeah.
And
Big tent revival.
yeah, and he wasn't well known. He would show up in these communities, and a few people would gather around, and he would preach his heart out. And these little churches and the small communities would pray, and they would, and we would look at it today and say, well, it was like 50 people showed up, and how big of an evangelist could he really be, and that kind of thing. And but on this one occasion, this church invited him in, and they had their prayer gathering, and a few people showed up for the revival. And it seemed to be just a normal revival. But on one night of the revival, a young man raised his hand and came forward and gave his life to Christ. And his name was Billy Graham.
Yeah.
And Billy Graham went on to change the world. And who was responsible for that? Well, ultimately, the Holy Spirit, but there were people who just prayed. And there was I don't know the guy's name who preached the sermon.
I almost said it. Like, you don't even know.
Nobody knows the name of the church that had the revival, but everybody knows Billy Graham.
Yeah.
And so it's when we go out into the community, when we have that evangelism, and it's not the person that's praying, it's, well, who are we praying? Who's going to get saved? And what's the long-term impact of that?
Yeah.
Right? So
it's kind of, I don't know, that's a different strain of thought, but tell me a little bit about what are some of the needs that you see in Gardner that you're hoping that we meet?
right. So when it's outside of the wall. So some of the things, and this ties into the funding of it and why the financial side is so important. If you pay attention to anything happening in our community, you know that there is a need for financial assistance. We get bombarded. There are people who can't pay their rent. There are people who need food. There are people who are struggling financially. So part of our heart and a big part of our budget, over $50,000 a year, is given annually to things like that from our church alone, where we contribute over $50,000 every year. The past couple of years, this year it's a little more than that. We have
tell
planned.
me about that though. Why does it fluctuate?
Well, it fluctuates based on our income.
Yeah, because we tithe back into the community.
So it's our tithe, 10% going back into ministry. And so if our offerings are down, well, we can't give as much out, right? So good point. And so it's, I don't know what it is, 55,000, 58,000 this year that we have budgeted and allotted to help people with gas bills and rent payments and those kinds of things. There is a greater need than that. So if we had more resources, we could impact our community with $100,000. We could impact more people. And when you meet people's physical needs, it opens doors to meet their spiritual needs. Okay, we would say, well, the spiritual need is the most important, and I would agree. But the person who's hungry doesn't believe that.
Well, it's like now you're the guy that stepped over the not the Samaritan, but the guy on the side of the road, the Pharisee that prays for him and steps over him.
So it's like, well, what you need is Jesus. Well, no, what I need is my gas bill paid. And so, but paying the gas bill opens the door to tell people about Jesus. Okay, so that's one aspect of it. Just the community need of financial assistance. We live in a community that's very divided, not everyone knows Jesus, and not everybody acts like they know Jesus, right? And so what we need is community impact, people who love God, who are being transformed, who can take the presence of God into the workplaces, into businesses that they own, into places where they do business, and just be a godly presence in those places and be open and be willing to talk to people about Jesus. That's community impact, where a business owner doesn't have to preach the gospel every single day, but they run a business in a way that people know that's a godly man.
It's
And-
charitable, it's
yeah.
honest, it's, community focused. Like those are traits, or should be traits, of Christ following people.
And so it's not just standing on a street corner with a megaphone and yelling at people to repent. It's, again, running businesses, working in businesses, doing business with people out in the community, being a presence. Our school board, it's a hot topic right now. There are all kinds of debates and arguments and fights and things that are taking place. And there are two different sides. Well, we need to be a presence there. We need to be a voice in our school. We need to let people know, but we do it in a godly way. You do it in a way that makes a significant difference. We stand for things that apparently our school board and some people do not agree with. So we don't back down. We stand up and we're willing to fight, but we fight in a way that honors God. We're not jerks and treat people poorly. And so that's our presence in the community. Well, again, all those things require people, and they require funding. It requires everyone coming together so that we can have a bigger impact. One person, two people, you have a voice, but you don't have a lot of influence. We have a lot of people. We could, again, we talked last night, how many special forces guys did it take to go
kidnap the dictator
kidnap a
of another
dictator?
country?
They said about 20. So what could happen?
But lots of resources, lots of missiles.
Yeah.
And,
So what could
helicopters.
happen when, I don't know, 2,000 people that call New Life home?
We are not encouraging you to kidnap the mayor of Olathe, of a
No.
neighboring
do-
township.
do not do that. But what if the
Well,
2,000
this is-
people that call New Life home got together, got their resources together, physical and financial? What could we do? It's incredible.
This is a really practical example of that, is that there were a couple of city council seats and school board seats that kind of fell to the more godless candidates, I would say. And it's like, and honestly, if all of our church had just gone and voted,
Right.
we probably would have flipped that election. And it's like, those are things like, it's just getting involved. And again, we talk about this in our step 1 classes. We say, hey, listen, there are certain things that we do as a church. Like, we do this and we do this, and having a vision and a direction allows us to say no to other things. When people come in and go, we need to start a sports ministry. And I'm like, listen, Brad Mann, who goes to our church, has Living the Dream ministry. It's fantastic ministry, and we want to support him. And so if you want to volunteer at a sports ministry, I would like to introduce you to Brad Mann. We don't do that. But we are a home base as such for a lot of different ministries that are happening in the community, that are happening in the Kansas City area, that the leaders of those ministries call us their church home, and we help minister to them and lead them.
And we don't have a sports ministry, but we have a gym.
Right.
A gym that we can make available that costs money, but we can
Yeah. So
we
if
can
you,
pour in. Yeah.
if you want to go and do that, if God's calling you to do this, we want to support you. And so there are things that happen that are kingdom things, and then there are things that are new life things. But we really encourage people, like, that where it's like, some people are asking, like, how can I help? Well, you can help here inside the church. You can fund the ministry of the church just through financial donations, but you can serve. And then if God's calling you to something, just because we don't necessarily do that as a church, that's not in what we feel like God has called us to do, that doesn't mean that's not what God has called you to do. And, if we can be supportive in that way, great.
Yep.
We might just be your home base and your home church when you are actually doing a ministry in Gardner that's going to change the business landscape, the Chamber of Commerce, the city council, like whatever it's going to be.
Yeah. So the biggest impact, I know we got to wrap up, but the biggest impact we can make it ties into our the mission of our church, which is loving God and loving people. And so when we go out into the community and we love people, well, love is an action. Love is something that you do, not just something that you say. And so when we're out in the community, actually loving people, serving them, being a part of it, that's impactful. And that ties into loving God, worshiping, and having a place. And again, finances plays a part in both of those things to make it all come together.
Yeah. So we want to keep encouraging you this month to be praying and fasting and asking the Lord how you can be involved, what He's calling you to do this year in 2026. And if you want to, maybe God has a mission for you, or maybe He's calling you to get on board here in a bigger way here at NLCC. So we hope to see you guys next time here on the 167, and we hope to see you this Sunday. See you later.
All right. Thanks for being here.
If you enjoyed this episode of the 167, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, get notified, leave a 5-star rating and a positive review. Tell all your friends to listen as well. Make sure you go over to newlifegardener.com and check out all that we have to offer as a church, and check out our messages online as well. Thanks for listening.